In this lesson we'll take time to apply some configurations as well as define a couple of keyboard shortcuts that are going to speed up our development. So first of all, I'm going to define keyboard shortcut to apply formatting to files. Let's try to break formatting in this view component and then execute the command in a command palette called format document. As we can see, since I don't have default formatter configured for this file type, VS Code asks me to configure it first. Or we can also specify formatter which we'd like to use by running command format document with, and in here we will see the list of all available formatters. And as you can see, after I have selected formatter, the file was formatted. Also, if we're gonna run the command format document with, and then choose this option configure default formatter, right here we can specify the formatter which is going to be used all the time for this file type. And the corresponding setting will be added to the default settings.json where all VS Code settings are configured. But I'm going to add these configurations in the local folder of VS Code, just to commit all these settings to GitHub repository. So I'm going to create a file called settings.json, and right here let's add a setting to specify default formatter for some file types. First of all, I'm going to specify default formatter for file types JavaScript, and the formatter we're gonna use is prettier. So in here I need to specify identifier of the corresponding formatter. And then I'm gonna repeat the same setting to specify default formatter for a couple of other file types, such as TypeScript files, as well as Vue components. So once again, let's try to break formatting in this component and then run the command format document. And in this case, the default formatter we have just configured will be used for formatting. And by the way, in order for this to work, the corresponding formatter called prettier should be installed. Now let's configure a couple of keyboard shortcuts. In the same way, I'm going to create a local file called keybindings.json where I'm gonna put all my keyboard shortcuts, but in order for these keyboard shortcuts to work, they should be added to the default VS Code's keybindings.json file, where we specify new keyboard shortcuts or override existing ones. Once again, I'm only adding these local JSON files to commit them to the GitHub repository, so these configurations should be added to the corresponding VS Code files called settings or keybindings.json. I'm going to apply formatting to files almost all the time, so I prefer to bind this command to a keyboard shortcut. In my case it will be Alt-Command-K. The command we are about to bind this keyboard shortcut is called editor.action.formatDocument. Then I'm going to specify a pretty long condition which will define where this keyboard shortcut should be activated. And you don't have to remember this condition since all these keyboard shortcuts can be specified via graphical user interface of VS Code. And these conditions will be automatically generated and added to your configuration files. In order to specify keyboard shortcuts via graphical user interface, we can run the following command: open keyboard shortcuts, and we'll see such UI where we can search for the commands and then assign keyboard shortcuts to these commands. And then corresponding setting will be added to your default keybindings.json file. So now if I'm gonna go back to the Vue component, break the formatting of this file, and then press that keyboard shortcuts we have just defined, we're gonna see that file was formatted. Next, I would like to apply automatic sorting for all these import statements, so that they will go in the alphabetical order. And VS Code provides us with a command to sort these imports. Let's find the command in the UI where we redefine keyboard shortcuts. Let's search for organize imports command, and right here we can assign the keyboard shortcut we wish to use for this command. I'm gonna use command +7. After that, corresponding configuration has been added to keybindings.json. From here I'm gonna copy over this keyboard shortcut setting and move it into the local keybindings.json file so that all these keyboard shortcuts will be committed to the GitHub repository. But you actually don't have to add all these settings to local.json files. So now let's try it out. I'm going to reorder these imports. Let's put these two import to view components in the middle and then press Command 7. And as you can see, all these imports were sorted. The order is alphabetical, but view components were automatically moved to the end. And also, if we would have some unused imports, for example, let's add an unused import in here and then press Command 7. As you can see, unused import was removed. Moving on, since our project uses static analyzer called ESLint, and just because we have installed an extension called ESLint in the previous lesson, that means that all ESLint violations will be shown directly in VS Code. So let's just reproduce some violation in this file. For example, let's use special parameter called arguments in the closure of the computed function. Right away, this violation was highlighted, and we can also see description of this error. But to make it easier to navigate between these violations, I prefer to define a couple of keyboard shortcuts to navigate to the next or previous violation. Just for the reference, I'm going to add the code to redefine these keyboard shortcuts to the local file keybindings.json, so it will be committed to GitHub repository. Firstly, I'm gonna specify command 8 to go to the previous error, and then let's duplicate this object once again and specify command to move to the next error. The keyboard shortcut will be command 9. So after that, if we'll open up view component once again and press either command 8 or command 9, we're gonna see such panel with the error description. And if we're gonna have more of those errors, by pressing command 9 or command 8, we can navigate between all these errors within the current file, and I find this workflow to be pretty convenient. So all these settings that we have defined in this lesson will be available in the GitHub repository, and the link to the repository will be in the video description.